Welcome to Grit and Grace, the place where grit shapes you, grace carries you, and friends walk beside you through it all. I'm Pam Rader, and along with my co-hosts Erin Payne and Brian Thiessen, we're here to laugh, cry, and tell the truth about what it means to be fully human. Think of us as your old friends. We share real stories, a little cowboy logic, and transformational tools. Because here's the thing, life's gonna kick your ass sometimes, but it'll also invite you to rise. And when you've got grit and grace and a few good friends, you will get through it all. So pull up a chair, grab your coffee, and buckle up. Welcome back to Grit and Grace. It's Pam with my good friend Erin.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back.
And as you know, we are always talking about the real, messy human stuff, and we hopefully try to bring a little bit of wisdom into the places that get sticky, and hopefully that wisdom can translate to some positive shift in your life. And today we want to talk about resentment. And resentment is really that slow, simmering, quiet, emotional hangover, that feeling that you're kind of like activated, initiated, you're edgy, reactive, and somehow everyone around you is suddenly an asshole. And here's the real like sort of sneaky truth. Resentment is actually it's often what happens when your mouth says yes, but your soul has been saying hell no to you.
Oh, yeah, it really, really is. And the worst part is, a lot of the time we think resentment means this is someone else's problem or this is someone doing something to me. And yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes they are. But sometimes resentment is just actually the bill coming due for all the ways we have not been honest with ourselves.
Anytime that I have ever felt resentment, if I look back, there's some element of self abandonment in there. I didn't ask for what I needed. I didn't fully express what something really meant to me. I didn't consider the other person or the dynamic of the situation. I didn't speak. I didn't express. And so then resentment is just self abandonment with attitude.
hmm hmm On the surface, right? Being nice, but
Yeah.
underneath, it's like grief, depletion, unspoken truth. I first learned about this idea that resentment is actually my own boundary not being met or laid down a couple of years ago. And I realized that I get better and better at it. But before I even understood what my boundaries might even be, I was so full of resentment. It was crazy.
Oh, yeah. And resentment usually is like, I like to think of it, it's that hot coal that you're holding, waiting to throw it at your enemy. They did something to me, or they didn't do something that they should do.
Yes.
And we continue to perpetuate the story, and we're creating sort of an energetic violence with that because I am now making you wrong. I'm othering you. And then the worst part is, I'm probably going to go recruit some other people to back me up. So I'm going to
Yep.
tell them about how you never call me when I always call you, or you always forget to pick up the kids, or whatever it is. Like, I'm going to recruit backup to establish my victimhood to your persecution. And I keep that going. And that is, to me, it's like resentment is long after an affront has happened, something where we recognize maybe a boundary was crossed, or we didn't have a boundary, or we haven't expressed ourselves. And so we perceive an affront, some kind of disrespect or whatever. But long before, so that happens. And then we have the opportunity right then to clean up the dishes and say, hey, I don't, when that happened, I realized I didn't express myself. And this is how that felt for
hmm
me. And in the future, I'd love for our relationship to have this freedom. And so could we talk about this? But no, in the attempt to be nice or to not be rejected, we shut up about
mm
it and then we play it over and over again. So we actually cause our own suffering. We keep basically taking the arrow out and then stabbing it into our own heart every time we think about what this person did wrong to us. That's resentment.
And it can make us feel righteous, right? Sometimes it's justified, but sometimes we're standing on a pile of unspoken expectations, acting like the other person should read our mind, or how do you say it? It's the playbook of how someone should treat us that they don't know
Yeah, the
about.
invisible instruction manual for how other human beings
Yes.
should behave, and everyone should read the freaking memo. And if you haven't read the memo, well, I'm going to be pissed at you.
I
Yeah.
remember the first time you said that to me, and I was like,
Yeah.
I like resentment for you for telling me the truth. It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, wait a minute." I didn't have full on resentment, but I was like,
Yeah,
I was
right?
confronted.
Well, resentment's not pretty, and we're talking about like it's a bad thing. But right now, I want to actually flip the script and say it's actually incredibly revealing. And we can
Mhm,
use where we have resentment to reveal some unhealed parts of ourselves and to look at where we could practice creating self-expression and boundaries and having our needs met so that we can free people from the bondage of our petty freaking resentment.
mhm, absolutely. It's like the first honest thing in the room. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, if resentment's present, it's the thing that's honest. You're not honest. If you're resentful, you probably haven't been honest. Because
Well,
if you were
yeah,
honest, you wouldn't have the need to be resentful.
exactly. When I first learned about it, it was a real mind trick,
Mhm.
to be honest. It's like, "Oh,"
Yeah,
the more I sat with it, the more it became I understood it that better and realized working it back, "Oh, yeah, this is because I didn't put down a boundary. It's because I didn't speak what I needed to speak. It was my unspoken truth that was not being honored."
totally.
Mhm,
When we're giving from a place that isn't actually clean, meaning we have to self abandon to do that, it looks generous, but underneath there's kind of a hope that someone will notice, someone will reciprocate, someone will validate, they'll choose us or appreciate us and make us feel worthy. And when they don't, two middle fingers up, back in the car out, like it's no good. And I'll give some examples. It can show up everywhere. It shows up in relationships when you keep saying yes and it's fine when it's not fine, or in friendships when you're always the one reaching out and you really have an expectation of the other person, but you don't express it. Shows up in business when you over deliver and you undercharge and then you feel pissed that people don't value you.
mhm,
Shows up in family dynamics when you keep being kind of the emotional pack mule. You're helping everybody else and then wonder why you're snapping over little things or why no one actually asks you if you're okay.
mhm. When you say yes, because you don't
Mhm.
wanna disappoint anyone, that was a big one for me. Then you end up resentful because your life feels hijacked.
Totally.
Mhm,
And then people say you've changed if you actually create a boundary or an expectation. And what's really happening is maybe you're just finally getting honest. Now,
mhm,
there's a funny thing. I used to have love to have dinner parties. Well, I thought I loved to have dinner parties. When I look back now, if I'm being really truthful about it, I was looking for external validation that I was good at that and that I could nurture people and that I could throw a good party. I wanted to be seen a certain way. And so I would throw these extravagant dinner parties, like have like fancy place settings and little gifts for everyone on the table and have 5 or 6 courses and it would plan it forever. And then I would invite over some really good friends and 6 months would go by after that and they would be raving about the dinner party, but I'd never get an invitation back. And I'd feel so slighted and so resentful. So the next dinner party, I didn't invite those same people because I had resentment.
right. Showing them.
So on my part, that was if I'm being again, when resentment's in the room, there's access to truth. And the truth was I didn't feel worthy in myself. And so I needed to do these extravagant things to show people that I could do them. And I needed their appreciation and apparently their reciprocity to value myself. And so if I feel resentful, instead of looking at them, the real question is, why do I feel resentful? What do I need from them that I can't give myself?
Mhm,
Or what do I need from them that I'm not asking for?
mhm.
So the funny part of that is I got to that eventually because I was chatting with my friend, her name's Christy, and I said, I feel a bit resentful because I've invited you guys over so many times and I never get invited back and I feel kind of left out and unappreciated. And she said, "Are you kidding me? Like anyone can compete with that." She's like, "I'd be so embarrassed to have you over to my house." And I said, "Christy, I could have a hot dog at your house and I'd be happy."
I was just thinking that. I'll just serve her a hot dog.
Yeah. And she said, "Well, I didn't know that. I look at what you do and I just couldn't." And so I had sort of set myself up. to other people had these, "Oh my gosh, she expects this of me." So, no communication, no real understanding of why I was doing it, and in reality, I would have been just as happy to sit with my friends and have a hot dog, honestly. It would have cost me a
Mhm.
lot less money and been a lot less work and
Mhm.
enjoyed them. I just wanted to feel valuable and valued,
Mhm.
and there was a metric for that, me getting invited back for dinner.
Something that you wanted in return.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a resentment was a clue. It's not always a sign that someone's wronged you. You know, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's a clue. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, more often than not, it's a clue
It's a clue.
that you didn't set a boundary, meaning you didn't say, you know, this isn't okay for me. A truth wasn't spoken, you know, that hurt my feelings, or, you know, what I need from you is this. A need wasn't owned. So maybe you needed space or you needed connection and you didn't express that. An expectation wasn't communicated. Yeah, I didn't communicate that I expected to be invited back for dinner and that it didn't matter what they made.
Mhm.
And or you agreed to something that your nervous system, your body, and your soul were never actually on board with. So people pleasing.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean you beat yourself up. It means you get curious and go, wow, there's a place this is pointing me. If I have resentment, because resentment is poisonous, I can keep drinking the poison, or I
Yeah.
can look at this and detox myself and get closer to what it is I want.
Mhm. I think a lot of times resentment too is like it's pointing to the place where our self-trust is kind of eroding or it's leaking. A little bit.
Mm,
Because when you want that external validation, right? And we've talked about this a million times. Like, what is that? Am I valuable or do I want validation? When you
mhm,
want that, it kind of comes from I'm getting that validation from outside myself,
mhm.
meaning I'm not aligned with who I am or what I value. And that self trust is just kind of not really there. So it's really just it could be, if you have the awareness and opportunity to look at where that self-trust
Yeah.
might be. You might be abandoning
And
that.
this, you know, I had a moment last night, and this is a simple little shift, but you know, the dinner party era was a long time ago. I'm gonna say almost 20 years ago, probably. For sure 15 anyway. But like so last night I invited a friend to she's a newer friend, and I invited her to go to the sauna on the lakefront in Peachland. It was a beautiful evening. And it's a 1 hour thing. It was a Friday night last night, and it was from 6 to 7. And we got there and we had a lovely time. We had a really nice visit. We went in the lake, went in the sauna, and then the old me who is looking for validation, who is, you know, wanting to feel valued would have been waiting for, you know, well, we should go for dinner or inviting her back to my place to, you know, let's order out or have a glass of wine or something. And everything in me was like, that's good. I'm good. I had a good time and I want to go home and cuddle my dog and not talk to anyone. And so I
Yeah.
said, it was really nice. See ya.
Well, that's a beautiful example of growth right there, and I
Yeah.
know that you've grown in that department a lot because you talk a lot about those things that you don't need anymore, and
Yeah.
I can tell that they're integrated for
Yeah.
sure.
Getting there.
Getting there. Yeah.
But, you know, in the past, let's talk to all the nice girls. All the nice girls, the helpers, the high capacity
Mhm.
women, the people who are really good at holding everything together. They're the glue, they got the duct tape. They're basically red green, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of resentment comes from over identifying with being the one who can handle it. And, you know, you and I talked about this right about the time we were going through our separations and that. Everyone kept saying to me, "You're the strongest woman I know." And I was like, I don't want to be the fucking strongest person. Why do I have to be strong right now? And I realized I did that to myself. I'm the one that can handle it. I'm the one that can hold it. So therefore, then not many people could come and be in the space with me. They didn't know how to help me. They didn't know how to be with me. And, you know, when you're always the one that can rise above it and the one that doesn't need much, but eventually, you know, when that happens, you start keeping score and your spirit starts protesting. And the polished version of generosity starts crackling. Eventually, that polished version of our generosity starts cracking because it was never rooted in truth. So I want to pull this apart. I always liked to be seen as a generous person. And that's very different than being a generous person. Because
Mhm.
to be seen as a generous person, I had to be validated for it. Often it had to be reciprocated. Often I had to self abandon and say yes to things that I wanted to say no to. Be a generous person is truly to be generous to myself as much as to others and to have no expectation of anything in return for what I give. I give because it's who I am. And that took a while for me to integrate, and it was a lot of resentment that led me down the pathway of finally kinda getting in that closer to that direction anyway.
What's coming to me right now is, yeah, you're the one that helps everybody else, right? And so people are just, "Well, I can't help her. I don't know how to. I don't know how to be with her." For
Yeah.
sure. I can see how that would happen. Absolutely. And, sometimes it comes out like resentment comes out sideways too, right? We can get real passive aggressive, and I just
Yeah.
learned that about myself recently, and I was taught that happened in my family,
Yeah.
for sure. Withdrawal, going cold on someone, sarcasm, martyr
Yeah.
energy, I was also taught
I
that.
go I go into the martyr energy, like,
Yeah,
I'll just do it
emotional
myself then.
distance,
Yeah.
take
And then
myself
I
out.
yeah, and then well, I'll do that too. I'll withdraw,
Mhm.
and then I'll be like, "Oh, never mind, I got it, I'll do it myself," and then I'm just over here, like, begrudgingly
Yeah,
resenting everyone else who abandoned me in my hard time or whatever. It's so
I'll
dumb.
show them. Yep.
But it's because whatever hasn't been directly expressed, it'll start to leak out as resentment. And I think it's helpful to sort of distinguish between what I'll call clean resentment and dirty resentment. So let's make a
Okay.
distinction here. Clean resentment is when something in you says, this is not okay. I'm out of alignment. Something needs to change. And that's information, right? This is out of
Mhm.
alignment for me and something needs to change. Dirty resentment is when you stay in victimhood. Like I said, you take that arrow out and then you just keep stabbing yourself with it. You stay in blame. You keep saying yes, you keep not speaking, and then you keep making the other person fully responsible for your pain and the fact that you have actually abandoned yourself.
That's
It's
such
like
an
you should
important
know.
distinction. That's such
Yeah.
an important distinction. I mean, one feels generative and the other feels like serious going, backwards, staying stuck, staying in victimhood, really.
Yeah.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're doing something to me.
There is sometimes, if someone has wronged you truly, it takes something to keep resentment alive. And that's when it gets dirty. Yeah, so it takes something to hold on to resentment. You have to keep focusing on how the other person wronged you, and you have to deflect your focus from what your responsibility was. So it's actually a way of avoiding responsibility for our
Mhm.
own emotions. If I'm resentful, I'm responsible to figure out why that is, where I've maybe abandoned myself, or maybe I am being wronged, but then go clear it up. Go create the boundary, ask for what you need, or move on from the friendship or whatever it is you have to do. But as long as you do nothing about it, you're the villain in your own play because no one's
Mhm.
responsible for your resentment except for you.
I had what I would consider the first time I was really aware of a massive breakdown because of my inability to set a boundary and people pleasing was with a business partner.
Mhm.
And I was not able to look at my part in it for quite a while. And, we talked about forgiveness on a podcast a few podcasts ago, quite a few podcasts
Mhm.
ago. And it took a while for me to, like, I knew, my logic told me I had a part in it, but I wasn't able to look at it until I was ready. And I just stayed in victim, but it was massive in my world.
Well,
Absolutely
I as you're
massive
just
rupture.
saying that, I'm thinking that our self-image plays a big role in it. Like we have a low tolerance for more shame, like for dealing with resentment if we're full of shame. If we're full of like if we're lacking self-worth, our tolerance for shame our shame tolerance is low. We can't really look at ourselves and go like, "Oh yeah, here's my part in it," because we take it right to shame and we're already full. And so I really
That
think about that.
is
It's like, it's not about unwillingness. It's like, I don't have the capacity because I don't see my own worth. And this is just piling another thing on that's something wrong with me.
that is so insidious.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind-blowing how much that plays under the surface, and it's like, there's no way I could see that.
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
no way I could see that, like
I always think that people who have a low tolerance for shame tend to become the victims and become defensive or people pleasers more often. And that's often because they were either highly criticized or they were bullied or they were believe that there's something fundamentally wrong with them.
Mhm.
So rather than going on and attacking other people, you know, around, oh, that person's always a victim. On the other end, if they're always resentful and they're always blaming, we can look at that and go like, oh, they maybe have a low tolerance for looking at themselves right now. Instead of, I hear a lot of people say, well, what about this person that's so negative and they're always resenting me and they're resenting this and resenting that. And what about them? Well, I don't want to get into resentment for that person, but I could try to understand them and say, like you at that point, we were friends and I understood that you couldn't hold anymore.
I could not hold any more.
No,
Do you think that deconstructing shame is an important tool then to
totally.
just
Totally.
that's almost how I started to pull myself out of some major, major
Oh, for sure.
issues that I have had, right?
When we just shine a light on it and we go, well, what really happened? And of course, and no wonder, and all of that, we start
Yeah.
deconstructing shame. And then we make a little space, we make a little room. And then
Yeah.
we also teach the nervous system. You know, when I take responsibility for my resentment and I look at it and I go and I clean up a mess, that's survivable. I didn't die from
Right.
that. And actually I feel better. And so then it becomes easier. But when we have no space for that, maybe in the past, you know, it was dangerous. You tried to take ownership of something and someone shot you down or wouldn't participate
Mhm.
in the conversation and it was dangerous. So we actually
Mhm.
have to teach the nervous system that like expressing our needs and creating boundaries is survivable. And that
Yes.
will require that we learn how to identify our needs and we learn how to communicate them in a non-combative way, that we learn nonviolent communication.
Having the awareness of yourself is just so important.
It's the
What
only
did you say
thing.
the other day? It's like the key. It's the rest of your life starts once you can get some awareness of yourself.
Totally. Well, I was teaching
Yeah.
yoga this morning and I was just talking about appreciation for the right now. Like right now is all we've got. There's no other time. We think there's a future, but we're always in the now. You can't live in the future because there's always just now. And we can't
Mhm.
live in the past because there's always just now. But we sit here in the now and we think that somehow, somewhere in the future, it's going to be better. So we create a sense of lack in ourselves right now. And then we want to justify it. Then our body doesn't feel very good. And we're like, why do I feel that way? And we go in to make meaning. So we look at what happened in the past that might make me feel this way. And so I had them do all these like frog leaps and like it was a hard class. It was a 90-minute power class. And I was a little ruthless this
Big
morning.
one.
The big one, yeah. And I get them doing these frog leaps, and then they sit in utkatasana, which is chair pose, and it's fairly intense, but they're it's still now. And I could see the looks on their faces, and I said, "Oh my gosh, we're just here in the now. Those frog leaps no longer exist. They do not exist. Period. But look how much you want to drag it. Look what happened to me in the past, and that's why I'm just having a hard time right now. And like,
Those frog leaps.
but if you just get in the now, there's nothing to resent. There's nothing like it's clear
Mhm.
space. It's a canvas, a blank canvas. If you're right here in the now and you go, who do I want to be?
Yeah.
Do I
Yeah.
need to be someone who creates boundaries? Do I need to express myself? Can I just let this go? Because
Mhm.
actually I'm making something that is nothing.
Mhm.
Those
This
frog
is a
leaps are so mean. Pam is so mean as a teacher, and
I
like
remember you made
whatever.
me do them 3 years ago, and I'm still like, "Those frog leaps."
Right?
This is reminding me of a book I'm reading right now, Courage to be Disliked, and I think it would be a really good book for you to look at if this episode is resonating with you.
Yeah.
And it's like our past does not define us, and we can choose differently from our past. Our past is not even
Yeah.
our trauma. And I want to be careful, and I don't want to
I don't give a
slide
fuck.
anyone's
Just
trauma to
say
the
it.
side or anything like that. But like
We're not
even our
sliding anyone's trauma to the
trauma,
side.
right? We can choose differently. Our past is not who we are, and it doesn't define us in any moment. And we can choose differently now
Yeah.
and move forward differently.
And it doesn't negate that there is stuff that lives in our nervous system. But that is
Yeah.
not your yoga teacher's fault. It's not your neighbor's fault. It's not your mom's problem. Like your trauma is not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. And so just the longer you stay in pointing at whose fault it is, the longer you perpetuate your own suffering.
Your
Because what
own
you're
misery.
doing is saying, look at this that happened to me. And I'm saying, okay, and what are you doing about it?
Mhm.
What do you need to let go of? What do you need to express? Who do you need to become so that you're free? The trauma can point you to where you're not free if you're still holding on to it. The resentment can point you to where you're not free. And
Mhm.
if you're interested in feeling more peaceful, if you're interested in feeling more aligned, then you might want to look at where you feel irritated by small things, where you're exhausted, but you keep pushing through, where you feel underappreciated all the time, where you keep replaying conversations in your head. You fantasize about, just quitting your job or disappearing or just leaving the relationship or blowing things up or,
That one's me.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
wanna burn it all down.
yeah. Or you keep saying, no, it's okay. Well, your body's like, dude, you're 54. What are you doing?
Man, you notice when, someone else is doing something that bothers you and it's way more than the actual situation should bother you? I've had that one too, where it's like, "Oh, why is this bothering me so much? It's
Yeah.
not even my task. It's not even my job.
Yeah. Like,
It's
why
not
is that
even my
person
life."
chewing so loud and you're all resentful about
Yeah.
it? Like, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what? There's something under the surface there.
Yeah, the disproportionate charge is often the clue. And it doesn't mean your feelings aren't valid. It just means there might be a whole lot more under there.
Mhm.
So, one of the most powerful questions you can ask when resentment shows up, I mean, you could just stay with it if you want. You don't have to get rid of your resentment. You could listen to the show and be, screw that. I want to keep my resentment. And you can go pick it up on the shelf and carry it around with you and have it, and good for you. But
Mhm.
if you're interested in getting free, if you're interested in being more aligned, if you're tired of feeling frustrated with other people and powerless in your life, one of the most powerful questions you can ask when resentment shows up is, where have I been dishonest? So if we go back to my dinner parties, where was I dishonest? Well, I was expecting them to give me some kind of praise or validation or acceptance and belonging. It wasn't a free gift. There was attachments to it, and I was being dishonest about that with
Mhm.
myself. So it's not because you're bad, it's not because you caused everything, but because the question brings your power back. So where have you said yes when you meant no? Where have you overgiven in the hope of being chosen?
Hmm.
Where have you stayed quiet to avoid conflict? And where have you expected someone to just read your mind about something you've never expressed? And then where have you been performing generosity instead of practicing honesty?
Performing is something I'm really looking at right now. Where am I performing anything, anything,
Yeah,
and not being real,
right?
like in
So what do we
many areas.
do? What do we do with resentment once we notice it?
Mhm.
Tool number 1, pause before you project. If you're feeling resentful, before you make someone else the freaking villain in your play, ask, what exactly am I feeling? What story am I telling? What boundary or truth or need might be underneath this? Do this work. Do not express it right away. Do the work first in you.
Yep, yep. Get brutally honest with yourself, right? And this is key. I mean, write it down if you need to, right? Like, start writing. I am resentful because I keep doing blank. I wish they would. Just all the dark truth. I haven't told the truth about blank. What I really want is just some of those really poignant questions that are going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. And then get into like naked reality. What actually happened? Because a lot of times we have resentment over something, the door shut too loudly. And we're like, that guy came in and slammed the door because he disrespects me. And it's, what actually happened? The wind blew the door closed, whatever. And you make a big story. What did you assume about what happened? What did you hope they would do? What did you never say out loud?
Find the self abandonment. I have to
Mm.
admit, this one can feel difficult. It can
Hmm.
seem difficult because I'm not very well practiced. I'm getting better in understanding where I abandoned myself. But if you can find, where did I leave myself in this? Where did I not honor what I need? Where did I not understand my own boundary and hold it or make it? I mean, that is huge and that's gold for this kind of work.
Yeah, where did I leave myself in this? Where did I abandon myself? And I sometimes think, what age was I? What age am I abandoning? Because it's your 5-year-old self grappling for attention, or your 13-year-old self afraid of feeling humiliated, or your
Oh, that's
19-year-old
good.
self afraid of being rejected by a boy, or whatever it
Mhm.
is. Which version of myself did I abandon there?
That's good. That's really good because it makes it a little easier to understand in your own
Yeah.
orbit.
And then have the cleaner conversation. Once you go
Mhm.
through this and you get what your part is, instead of saying you never appreciate me, like universals like that, you always and you never, try, I need to be honest. I've been saying yes to things that I don't actually have capacity for. And I'm noticing resentment building, and that's mine to own. And I also need something to change. That's clean.
Mhm.
That's clean, where there's no blame to the other person. This is me taking ownership. I've been saying yes when I should have said no, and I need something to change.
Mhm.
And that's going to have, like, there's nothing for the other person to defend.
Yes, exactly, and it will create connection right in that moment, or a sense of connection for sure. One other thing that I've been thinking of as we've been talking here too is I think resentment also often hides grief.
Grief over the energy spent, grief over all the times you stayed silent,
Yes.
grief over the version of you that believed love had to be earned through self sacrifice.
Ugh.
Grief over realizing you taught people to expect access to a version of you that was never fully true. That's tender, right?
Mm.
Because
It feels
resentment
tender
isn't
right
always,
now.
yeah, it's just not, it's not always anger. Sometimes it's heartbreak with armor on it.
Mhm. That's good, yeah.
But the
Yeah.
good news about resentment is that it doesn't have to mean that the relationship is doomed or the situation is doomed. Sometimes it does, but not always. Sometimes it simply means that there's an invitation into a more truthful way of being, a more truthful way of living, like a more honest yes and a more embodied no, a clean and clear boundary, a respect for your own capacity, and like a willingness to stop performing and just start telling the truth. And the thing about telling the truth is this, like, it's liberating, but it's to me it's my life's work to get closer and closer to truth and to help other people do that, because
Mhm.
the world is full of performers that are dying under the suffocation of their masks. And when we tell the truth and we get vulnerable and we go first and we live authentically, I believe we give others permission to do the same. If I say, hey, this doesn't work for me, this is a boundary, and our friendship survives, now my friend actually has the ability to do that too and free herself a little bit.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, the opposite of resentment isn't being endlessly accommodating. It's just like you said, it's being real.
So, if resentment has been showing up in your life, I'd invite you not to shame it, not to dramatize it, and not to blindly obey it either, but
Mhm.
listen to it, because resentment may be the flare going up over a place where your life has drifted out of alignment. And maybe the question is not who do I blame, but the question is what truth have I not been looking at?
Mhm. That's powerful work right there.
I think that resentment's often what happens when your mouth says yes and your soul says hell no. And the beautiful thing is, you can change that and you can return to yourself. You can tell the truth. You can stop leaking bitterness all over the freaking place and wondering why you're standing in a poison cesspool, and
Yeah.
start building a life that actually fits.
I mean, that sounds a whole lot better than being secretly pissed off all the time, and for what?
Yeah, right. So if this episode hit home, send it to someone who could use it. Share it in your stories and tag us. And if this is your work right now, just know you're not alone. A lot of resentment, it's not cruelty, it's just a clue. And clues lead us home. And if you'd like
Yes.
to work one on one with either Erin or myself, the links are always in the show notes. And you're welcome to join us at our Grit and Grace retreat happening at the end of May. 4 days in the Caribou country of British Columbia, riding horses, doing yoga, talking about all this kind of cool stuff that matters. Come on up and hang with us.
Yes, absolutely. And share where you might have some resentment going on too, because it's like want to hear other people's experiences.
Okay, until next time.
Bye, everybody.